Brittney Griner decides to turn a regular season game into a full-on WWE audition by chasing down the referee, just when you thought the WNBA couldn't get much messier. Before being expelled from the game, Griner became so enraged by a referee's call that she began threatening her and even gave her a vicious shove. But let me tell you, this isn't shocking at all because Brittney Griner frequently plays nasty and displays her anger management problems on the court.
Wale, shot clock at 3, at 2, Turner reaching in, Alicia Gray from behind the line, and down it goes. And now we've got Brittney Griner going after Anigwe, and this could get ugly. Griner is being held back by numerous players and now trying to throw punches.
Don't get me wrong, this is Griner from the textbook. What you just witnessed was a well-known incident that happened 5 years ago, in which Brittney Griner literally chased Christina Anigwe down the court like she was acting out a scene from the WNBA edition of Fast and Furious. She had to be restrained by security. There was complete mayhem as several players were kicked out. It resembled a Jerry Springer show that erupted during a basketball game.
Sports reporters, well, Brittney Griner has lost her mind. Now, we've seen her have issues with WNBA refs this season, Lord knows. Brittney Griner lost her mind last night on a WNBA ref.
Oh my God, Caitlin Clark would have been banned, fined, evicted, and most likely given a psychological evaluation by now if this had been her. If Sophie Cunningham gave a referee a sidelong glance, petitions to banish her to the G League would circulate. However, Brittney Griner always seems to get the soft glove treatment. The league's reaction to a smack here, a slur there. After the game, let's just discuss it. And it is what adds to the horrible nature of the entire Griner episode. There is an obvious double standard. Brittney is allowed to yell profanities, push referees, and march around as if she controls the venue. However, no one even bats an eye when Clark is roughed up every other night. It's a foul if she even breathes too forcefully on someone. However, when Griner essentially truck sticks a referee, many say, well, let's wait and see.
Behavior, 6'9", muscular Brittney Griner, quite intimidating, especially to a normal-sized female referee. Got tossed out of the game for making contact with an official, which is an absolute no-no.
The WNBA's duplicity and treatment of Griner in comparison to other players is astounding. Should Caitlin Clark or Sophie Cunningham have made contact with an official, the league would have taken swift action. Maximum fine, suspension for multiple games, the entire 9 yards. The WNBA punished Sophie Cunningham for standing up for Clark against players who were obviously trying to harm her while ignoring the aggressors.
If Caitlin Clark did this, if Lexi Hall did this, if Sophie Cunningham did this, they would be suspended for the rest of the season. I mean, hell, Kathy Engelbert and her bunch might kick them completely out of the league.
Yes, exactly. For getting a chest bump and an eye wipe, Caitlin received a technical foul. Even by the WNBA standards, it was outrageous. There is no room for hate, the league declares. However, it's now open season for eye-poking, cheap shots, and on-court violence when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Are the officials purposefully blinding themselves? Or do they fail to recognize their hypocrisy?
Where is the diva of dump divas? Where is the elegant and equally passionate Kat Engelbert? Imagine the irony. I guess the cat has the cat's tongue.
This is how we should put it. Sophie Cunningham was fined 6 figures prior to her post-game protein shake for attempting to defend Caitlin Clark. For weeks, she was under media investigation.
But never fear, Brittney Griner, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Brittney Griner does what we call checking them boxes. And Brittney is checking all the boxes. The woke trifecta.
That's right. However, it's just Brittney being Brittney when it comes to Griner and the WNBA. As though that should justify persistently hostile, almost violent conduct. The WNBA is being poisoned from the inside out by this double standard. Every game, Clark is battered without any egregious fouls being called. Players who defend their teammates or themselves face consequences. but the league ignores Gurrier's ability to physically attack officials. It's obvious that it's corruption, not just unfairness.
JC Sheldon is guarding Caitlin, swipes her in the face. There's one. Going for the ball, swipes her in the eyeball. Caitlin's gonna have to start wearing goggles. And then Caitlin pushes her off of her, like, why are you still in my face? Marina Mabry, bat out of hell, chucks Caitlin Clark to the ground.
In fact, a lot of WNBA players initiated petitions to have Sophie expelled for standing up for her colleague. However, Gurrier has no repercussions for yelling racial epithets, starting altercations, or bumping referees. The message is unambiguous. If you belong to the protected class of the WNBA, you can get away with anything. You'd better keep your head down and endure the abuse if you're not. Do you recall Brittney Griner calling Clark a fucking white girl in passing? It was utterly repulsive. Let's be honest. The WNBA would have suspended players indefinitely if this had been overturned.
She didn't get thrown out for this, but Sophie Cunningham got thrown out for what she did. Sophie Cunningham got thrown out for what she did.
What if Caitlin Clark had used a derogatory epithet towards a black athlete during live television? What if Paige Buers had shamelessly slapped a black player across the face? The press would go crazy. The outcry would be enormous, and with good reason. However, when it's the opposite, when Brittney Griner is playing cricket, typically,
play because she was standing on business. It wasn't a dirty play. It was an intentional foul, and it was meant to send a message. It turned into a scuffle, and I don't think anybody wanted that. But the way that the game went and how egregious the referees were and how they were not protecting players, and they especially weren't protecting the #1 player in this league, the biggest draw in this league, which is Caitlin Clark, and they continue to not.
Any kind of integrity or fair competition. The most pitiful thing is how predictable everything is. In order to demonstrate that no player is above the rules, the WNBA had the opportunity to finally hold Griner responsible. However, they won't. After making a flimsy speech about their enthusiasm for the game or the heat of the moment, they will leave. Because it is now clear that the league is more concerned with safeguarding specific individuals than with upholding.
Clowned Brittney Griner is the understatement of the century. I'm just going to read a few, but my goodness, what is going to happen here? Inquiring minds want to know, Kathy Engelbert.
Gurrier has an extensive history of angry outbursts and foul play. She started a full-fledged fight by pursuing Christina Nigwe like a linebacker. She was taken into custody on charges of domestic abuse against Glory Johnson, her then-fiancé. She was even seen on tape muttering "fucking white girl" in reference to Caitlin Clark, as if that weren't enough. This isn't merely a poor game. This is the essence of Brittney Griner. When she is unable to compete at the level she used to, a player turns to cheap shots, physical threats, and ethnic hatred.
Here's Brittney Griner. They're playing against the Indiana Fever, and look what she's saying. Go ahead, Rob.
For the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
Well, that pretty much sounds like trash effing white.
But you know what? Fans are more astute than that. They refuse to be duped by the league's partiality or unfair treatment. They can tell who is playing ball and who is playing nasty. And you see how deeply the dysfunction exists on evenings like this, when a player like Gurrier humiliates herself and the league by chasing a referee.
Normally, all it takes is a false accusation, and the entirety of the WNBA is ready to combat mythical racism. They put down the miniature ball, they utilize their weapon of choice, social media, and they portray themselves as the ultimate victim. But over a week has passed since Brittney Griner appeared to say a racial slur towards Caitlin Clark, and for some reason, the WNBA is choosing to exercise their right to remain silent.
Yes, exactly. Gurrier even used profanity to abuse the officials while they were on live television. She quickly left the microphone and faced the referees in front of the camera. Her statements to the referees were clearly apparent, even if the entire interaction was not recorded. Get better.
Can we send him back? This is how a man behaves. Ooh. Needs to go back to Russian prison. You knew You knew this was not going to be good.
Watch the entire conversation. Their captures were sufficiently damaging. On live television, a 6 feet 9 inches professional athlete physically towers over referees, yells at them, and then leaves like a spoilt child who didn't get her way. Can you think of another player in the league doing this? They would be fined into the following season after being benched for weeks. However, the league office is likely to give Griner a slap on the back and a participation trophy.
White hope. But for some reason, Kat Engelbert is choosing to ignore it. Kat Engelbert can't find the interest to even launch an investigation.
The hypocrisy is quite annoying. Sophie Cunningham was punished by the same league for merely opposing players who were pursuing Caitlin Clark. Yet, it goes beyond a double standard at this point when Griner really uses foul language about officials and crickets. Institutional corruption is the cause. The message is really clear. Being a member of the WNBA's protected inner circle gives you the freedom to hurl racist epithets, attack opponents, and harass officials. Otherwise, good luck avoiding their fury.
The official, tell me this is not intimidating to the official. Brittney Griner, who has been in fights, who has chased other players down the court and thrown punches. Brittney Griner, who we saw earlier in the season, in the middle of an interview on TV, turned and went after an official at halftime, cursing them.
Griner used to be regarded as the face of women's basketball. She was powerful and unstoppable. In contrast, she is now a shell of her former self and is more renowned for her drama than her power. Furthermore, this most recent disaster is but another chapter in the escalating tale